Um, he goes to the campaign headquarters, and of course, his breath is stopped when he saw Kamani. So he, of course, was like, why is she here? And, Uncle Gordon was like, listen, I know, she told me what happened. She came to see me the week before. And it's okay. She's coming to help. And, of course, Ben is like, you can't trust her. So now Ben's thinking, like, I need to shut this paper down immediately. Especially once his uncle was like, yeah, she's doing like a profile on me, in the paper. So now Ben's like, she's working an angle. Like, he's like, because he's trying to make it right. Because, it was his fault. He letting her see the phone and that type of thing. So he's trying to make it right. So if he feels like she's doing something that could be even, if there's a maybe that something could be shady, Ben's gonna shut that shit down. So he notices that there's this young guy that's like smiling a little too hard at Kamani, and it's getting to him. And so he decides, it's best, let me just go ahead, let me go talk to her, and let me kind of gauge where she's at, where she is, what she's up to. She stopped in her tracks when she sees Ben because she thought he was still in Tokyo. So she's like, what the hell? So she tries to, get out, and go on her way and do the flyers and talk to people about voting. And then Ben stops her outside. And he was trying to give her a ride, but she, of course, refused. So he grabbed her arm, and then, like, all her flyers fell out. And then Yumi pops up, and she's along with Alice Lee, which is Gordon's wife. And that's Yumi's aunt. And Yumi's like, well, who is this? And she takes the opportunity at that to, like, get the hell away. Kamani does. So she goes to different homes, and she speak of how like worn down the community is, and of course talking up Gordon, Lee, and what his ideas are. And then she talked to a few people, and they were talking about the basketball court, how dilapidated it looked, and how that would bring that would help a lot, if the kids had something safe, a safe place to go, and play just straight up pick up basketball. So she's like, you know what, that'll be a good idea. So she starts kind of thinking about a way to maybe try and do some type of fundraiser to get the money up to, get it restored. So when Kamani left, of course, Yumi was talking to Ben. She's like, who is she? And Ben was like, just someone I used to know. And she was like, dating? He was like, I wouldn't call it that. And Yumi was like, she wanted details. She wanted to know the history of the two. And he wouldn't provide it. And so she made the comment, must have been some hell of a history. And so he sends her shopping. He tells her, I'll see you later. So Ben's annoyed by Yumi when he gets back to his place because he doesn't like the girl. She really is just a body, okay? That's crazy that someone can view the world could look at this woman and like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful thing. And he's just like, it's a fucking body. Like, that's how he sees her. Because he knows her core is, like, shitty anyway. So, he gets back to his place. And Yumi's there. And, of course, that girl, she wants to go to I'm going to say it wrong again. Ashwaka West, which is like that high-end restaurant, 5-star restaurant, Michelin star restaurant that she wants to go to, that he took Kamani to. And he was like, no, we can't get in there. She's like, why? You're a whole investor. He's like, nah, you got to wait at least 2 weeks. And so then he was like, name a few places, and I'll ask my assistant to see where we can get a reservation. So, of course, she wanted to fuck. And he really didn't, because, of course, his mind, it's all preoccupied with Kamani. And so he received a text saying that Kamani had just gotten home and she had spent the whole time in that neighborhood in East Oakland. And he was like, shit, like he was mad because he didn't want her going. Of course, it's not that safe. And he didn't want her over there. So he finally caves in, gives Yumi, what the hell she been whining for, and he was like, "Give me a blowjob." So she's not that great at it. Her teeth are like grating against his dick, and she doesn't have any gag reflexes, so she just sucks at it. So I'm not a guy, but that sounds painful if the teeth are like grating against your dick. Like, I would just be like, just bend over, because there's no point. So while Yumi's doing this piss poor blowjob, he gets a text from Batar that apparently Kamani and Marissa are on their way out. And he's looking like, on their way out? Like, what the hell? So then Batar texts him again and was like, yeah, Mo overheard them saying that they were going to this place called The Lair. So now we go back to Kamani and Marissa. So while they're getting ready for their night out, Marissa explains, that she goes to the lair, but she only watches now. And that she hasn't participated since the Scarlet auction. She's scarred, you know what I'm saying? And so this is when Kamani decides to tell her the whole story of how she went undercover at the Scarlet auction, and that the break-in was probably from that. And so Kamani tells her, she pressed charges and all the guy got was like a fine. And so Marissa explains that was the reason she didn't really want to bother doing it, because she would have lost the money and then nothing would have happened to the guy. So at first, Kamani, her thought process was, she thought, but prior to this, everything happening to her, she thought it was like this coward thing for Marissa not to want to go forward and, say. But it's like, you have to look at the full picture. And Kamani is deep. She's supposed to think a lot more so than what she does to be a fucking journalist. She really doesn't think that hard. She thinks hard on the dumb shit. And she was judging that girl because that woman, she really didn't want to relive that shit. Like, I think the girl goes to therapy, so she's dealing with it in the way that she feels she needs to. But because she didn't choose the route you thought, you judged her like there was something wrong with her. Now you see she would have lost the money. So she went through that for fucking nothing. And then on top of it, there's a possibility she could have been sued too for violating that NDA. So now she owes money and she went through hell. Plus the person doesn't even get it. They get a fine that they like throw that away on small shit, So Kamani, she just kind of gets to me sometimes. So because Kamani actually brought up again to the girl, was like, have you thought about going to the police? And Marissa was like, nah, like, why would I do that? I lose if I do that. I'm not doing that, And finally, she kind of gets it. Like, okay, I kind of see, because shit, look at what I did. I went through that, and there was no money, and the guy got off with the slap on the wrist. So we go back to Ben. Ben's fucking Yumi, but of course he's thinking about Kamani. And he's texting with Batar. First of all, bitch, you not finna fuck me and text the fuck. I'm sorry, that is crazy. But that alone should have let Yumi know this man genuinely just doesn't give a fuck. Like, if he liked you before, really doesn't like you that much if he's fucking you and texting. Like, come on, use your brain. So he was texting Batar, and he's all in his thoughts as usual. And so he started wondering, like, well, hell, who is she going to the BDSM club with? Like, who's she going to be with, And he's thinking, like, shit, did she have more experience than what I thought? Like, damn. And so so when he's done with fucking Yumi, she's like, you hit me too hard, because he like smacked her on the ass. And she was like, he said, I didn't slap you hard enough because you don't have a fucking mark. So she goes to take a shower, and she's like, come with me. And he's like, no, I'm good, I got stuff to do. So he has Steven send over the piece that they're working on Uncle Gordon at the Tribune. And he read it, and it was actually unbiased, but since it wasn't the final draft, he was like, there's potential for them to go back in and change it and make it like this scathing type of fucking article. He calls the attorney. He's like, shut down the Tribune immediately. I was like, shit. So Kamani and Marissa go to the lair. Once they're there, they get invited to the upper room. And so the upper room is where all the VIPs go. So the VIPs, they're like fully vetted. There aren't any doors, just curtains. There's plenty of security around. It's a safe environment considering what's happening. So when they get invited, at first she was like, no, I don't want to go, this and that. And then finally she caves in and she agrees to go. So of course she's got an uneasy feeling. And when they go to the upper room, she finds Ben. So of course he asked her, I didn't know you were a member. And she was like, I'm not. I'm just here with a friend. And so she told him that she sent him a letter, and she asked him if he got it, and he was like, I did. And I was like, damn. And he was like, he hadn't forgiven her for what she did. And then he just crushed her lips. I was like, what the fuck? So then she pulls back, and then she grabs him, and she took over and crushed his lips. So they of course had this intense session because, let's be honest, they clearly miss each other. She wanted to fuck him, and he was like, nah, that ain't gonna happen. I'm gonna fuck you. So he put the condom on, got inside her quickly as possible. He called her pet, and she got pissed because she hates that fucking name. And he spanked her 10 times, and after each hit she had to say the number and thank you, master. And then he fucked her again and came again. And his thoughts were, when he pulled out of her, because he didn't pull out until he was like flaccid, and he still didn't want to get out of her. And he was like, damn, I could just stay in her forever. And I was like, fuck yeah, you in love. So after they're done, Kamani's like, I gotta go check on Marissa and Miguel. And Ben's like, they're right outside. So Ben was about to say something to her, but she like scurried away because it was a lot going on at that moment for her. I think emotionally and then just sexually. She was like, I gotta get out of here. This is too much. So she goes out. Of course, Marissa and Miguel, they're there. Now Miguel is the normal partner that Marissa has when she goes to the BDSM clubs. Used to be a partner for a long time, but he moved away, and he recently moved back to a few months ago. So that's who Miguel is. That's where he comes into play. So she's like, how long were you, what did you see? And Marissa was like, we just saw that you were having fun. And Marissa was like, he's hot, So they have a conversation back and forth about this, the guy, Ben. So then the next day she goes to work. She finds out the paper's done. So no more stories, and the building will be locked at midnight. So she goes around the corner to get a green tea at like one of the little shops, and because now old girl has a acquired taste for green tea. And right when she gets her tea, she hears if it isn't the reporter. So she knows the voice is Jake. And he, of course, starts in on her. And it's like she's telling him, like, yo, you're violating the restraining order. And he didn't care. He just kept saying shit. And he said a bunch of racist shit. He's just an ass. And so then a big guy comes. And he's like, are you okay? And then Jake, like, piped down. And then she was able to kind of get away. So she was kind of thankful someone heard and intervened, And so she left, she called the cops, report, what Jake had done. And she's looking and she's like, I've seen that guy before. And then it comes to her, it's the guy that was coughing that scared away the intruder that was across the street. So Ben was pissed when he found out what happened. Because you got to remember, he's got somebody on her 24/7. So when he gets the report, he's pissed. So he, of course, was like, I want daily reports on Jake from now on. He was talking to Batar. Batar was like, all right, I got you. So the night before, he sent Yumi to stay at a hotel. And she was upset. And she wanted to know, like, who the other woman was. And she was like, it's not that black woman, that black girl we saw earlier. And he just didn't say anything. And she even said, your father's not going to like the fact that you're dealing with someone like that. And he was like, I really don't care what my father knows. It's not his business and it's not yours either. And so he had